So now that you've learned a little bit about color and you know that pixels are measured again in red, green, and blue light, and you're just taking that light and it's different values of it, right? So we've talked about how when you have no light, it's black, right? Everything turns black. So we had no red light, no green light, no blue light, we'd be black. If we had all of the red light, all of the green light, and all of the blue light, it'd be white because it's light, right? So there's different ways for you to really understand how to measure that light. We've measured it with colors, names so far. You can do it in binary too. Not that I'm going to ask you to do binary, but what you're going to find is that there are two versions of being able to measure that light and get a very exact color, because if you look up the color codes, you're very limited by the number of colors you have available to you. But we actually have a ton of different colors we can pick from. And when you create a color scheme and you want to get this certain feeling from your website or from your graphic, you need to know what the exact colors are. If you work for McDonald's, you need to use the exact red and yellow that they want, right? You can't just pick something that's close by. If you think about when McDonald's rebrands or whenever they redo something, they have, like right now, they have neon colors on all of their packaging. They have these bright like pinks and greens and those kinds of things. Everyone who creates graphics with those, creates website, all of that, they have to use the same colors. You can't just use some random ones. So knowing how to figure out what that code is or how to identify it is important. So on your form, you've been given a link right below this video. So if you need to pause it and go back and grab the link, join me and go to this HTML color picker site. Excuse me. This site will show you that you can pick a color in here. And then if you scroll down, you can see that it's got a pound sign with a code. This is red. So when we talk about how we count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we begin to combine digits, a 1 and a 0 together to make 10. And then we go 11, 12, 13, so on and so forth. So we can keep making numbers. That's a base 10 system. So what that means is we have 10 numbers to work with. 0 through 9 is 10 numbers. But what if I said now all of a sudden, instead of having 10 numbers, you had 16, right? That would be a hexadecimal system. So what the hexadecimal system does is it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But instead of starting over and having two digits next to each other, it then goes A, B, C, D, E, F. And that adds 6 more digits to our availability to make a hexadecimal system. So now, instead of saying, the next number is 10, it's actually going to be, it goes like 0, or it would go 1, and then we can have an A after it, or a B, or a C, or D, and it keeps growing. So you can actually grow even more and have more values. Essentially what that means is that the lowest value is 0, right? That would be no light, 0. And the highest value of red would be F, not 9, where we stop, but F. So when we look at these numbers, they're going to range, these values, they're going to range from 0 to F. And you're going to see that it's going to have, here we have FF, because I'm currently looking at the brightest form of red. So if I change over here to green, you'll see that instead of having Fs in the first 2 slots, which represent a brightest form of red or a red value, I'm now going to have a lot of green. FF in the green area, because it goes red, green in the next 2 digits, and then blue, right? And that's the same thing here for RGB. If you look at it, red, green, blue. Look at this. 255 being the highest value. We know this from the video. It goes from 0 to 255. It's on the green. If I go back to the red, it's on the red. So you can see they're correlated. If I go to blue, they're now on the blue. Now, let's say we go somewhere in the middle, like let's go to pink, right? If I go to pink, you can see that I've got all of the red, as much red as I can. I've got all of the blue, as much blue as I can. But now I've added in about a quarter worth of green, right? Or a third worth of green. So now I've got 6, 6 being that green. Now, as you move more towards the blue, you're going to see the red decreases. Green stays pretty consistent until I get up into the blues. And now I'm got some letters in here to represent even higher than a 9. And I'm adding in more blue, a little bit of green, and no red. So when we talk about these values, really, as you move around, you're going to see them adjust to have different sets. And over here in this green area, you can see that I'm not having a lot of red or blue, but I'm having a lot of green because remember, it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, C being higher than 9, and so on and so forth. So when we talk about this and we talk about putting in these codes, we can actually measure a color by its hexadecimal number or measure it by its red, green, blue values. So here I've just got my colors, but if I go down here for use HTML5, I actually can click here and begin to adjust this. So if I had no red, 0, 0, you could see what color this would be with a lot of green, right? Lots of green. If I had all the green, it would take me up into that far right corner with a little bit of blue. And then 0 for blue would take me to the brightest lime green that we were seeing. As you move around the spectrum, you're going to see these colors adjust as needed, bringing in as much red or green or blue as they can. And then if you wanted to, you could switch over to hex by clicking on this, and you'll see that lots of red, quite a bit of green, and no blue. So this is important because we can measure in these different values. And if you wanted a specific value, you could find it and utilize it. So let's talk about how this works with our code, right? So let's say I want a very specific teal color. The teal color I want is going to have very little red, lots of green, and quite a bit of blue, okay? Because teal is green and blue usually mixed together. So here, I'm going to go ahead and instead of red, I'm going to type a # or hashtag, whatever you want to call it. And that's going to say, okay, computer, I'm typing in a hexadecimal number. So you need to read the first two values as red, 1 being very little red. The second two values as green, FF being a lot of green. And you can see that automatically that's going to come in. And then a lot of blue being BF. And together, that is going to make this beautiful teal here. So you can see that that value comes in with those colors. Now, let's say I want to do like a nice blue for the nav. Instead of doing a hexadecimal number, this time we're going to do an RGB code or a red, green, blue. So we're going to say to the computer, all right, I'm going to type in a red, a green, and a blue value. To type in those values, I'm going to put them in parentheses. And I'm going to say, okay, the red is the first value, very little of 4. The green is the second value, quite a bit, but not a ton, 182. And then I really want a lot of blue, so I'm going to go pretty high at 232. That's then going to create this nice sky blue because I've got a lot of blue, quite a bit of green, and little to no red. And so you can have these values come in being multiple ways, but remember, whenever they're written, they're always RGB, red, green, blue. R, and then the second two values being G, and the third two values being blue. So RGB is always going to be how we measure in our screens. When you get to printing, you do with CMYK, but for screens and graphics that are used online, we use RGB. Don't forget to save this.